Welcome to the Vine Christian Community Church podcast. This is actually our second deep dive.
That's right.
And each week, we take the message from our previous Sunday service, and we really try to explore its main points in a bit more depth.
Yeah. Dig a little deeper.
Exactly. So today, we're diving into the message we heard from John chapter 1, specifically verses 1 through 28.
And the sermon series we're in, it's called The Dawning Light, Witnessing the Arrival of the Word.
Catchy title.
It is. And this specific exploration, we're zooming in on what was titled The Eternal Word and the Forerunner.
Okay.
And the big idea, really, the central theme for today is that Jesus, who existed, before everything, he is the light of the world.
Right.
And John the Baptist, well, he was sent specifically to bear witness to him, to point us towards that light.
I remember the sermon starting with such a vivid picture, that feeling just before dawn.
That anticipation.
Yeah, that sense of expectation as the darkness just starts to lift. And the message drew this powerful parallel between that feeling and the very start of John's gospel.
It did. It presents Jesus as like the dawning of God's ultimate revelation to us.
So where do we start unpacking this? I suppose right at the beginning, John 1, verses 1 to 5, that really sets the stage, looking at the divine nature of the Word.
It absolutely does. And John, he starts before time, doesn't he? He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Straight away, it's huge.
It really is. This Word, it's not just talk, is it?
No, not at all. It's presented as the very expression of God's being, his power, his wisdom, all made manifest. A bit like how our words convey our thoughts, but infinitely more profound.
Okay, that helps, that idea of expression. And those opening verses, there are some really key truths packed in there.
Definitely. Three massive ones.
The first one being that eternal existence in the beginning was the Word. It really stresses that Jesus wasn't created later.
Exactly. He wasn't plan B. He was already there, always existing with God. The sermon was clear. He didn't become God.
He always was God.
Always was, which leads right into the second truth. And the Word was God. I mean, it couldn't be much clearer.
No ambiguity there.
None. It's a direct statement of his deity, not just like God. He is God.
Okay, and the third piece, the Word was with God. What does that tell us?
Well, that points to a distinct personhood within the Godhead. There's a relationship there, love, communion, perfect unity.
So distinct, yet totally united.
Precisely. And this really opens the door to understanding Jesus as God incarnate, always God, but then coming in human form for our salvation.
It reminds me of that reference, was it 1 Peter, about Christ suffering in the body but being made alive in the spirit.
Yes, 1 Peter 3:18-19. It really underscores that eternal divine nature that never changed, even when he took on flesh.
It's mind-bending stuff. And then just a couple of verses later, through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made.
Wow. Yeah. So he's not just divine, he's the agent of creation.
Right, involved in making everything, which again shows he existed before creation.
Absolutely. It counters any idea that he was just another created being. The sermon used that cause and effect analogy, remember?
Creation needs a cause.
A first cause, something uncreated, eternal. And the only logical answer is God.
The ever-existing creator.
Yes. And Jesus, the Word, was right there, instrumental in that creation.
And from creator, it moves as source of life and light. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind.
Powerful imagery. He's the origin of spiritual life.
And that light, it says, shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.
Or understood it, or extinguished it, depending on the translation. But the sense is the same. The darkness can't defeat this light.
So sin, ignorance, they don't stand a chance, ultimately.
That's the promise. Jesus' light is fundamentally more powerful. It really pushes us to see Jesus not just as, a good teacher or historical figure,
but as the eternal Word, the creator, the source of life itself.
Exactly. It calls for a much deeper worship, a greater reverence.
Okay, that sets the scene powerfully. Then the focus shifts a bit, doesn't it? To John the Baptist in verses 6 to 8.
It does. After establishing who the Word is, the narrative introduces this key figure. There was a man sent from God whose name was John.
Sent from God. That's important. He wasn't self-appointed.
No, divinely appointed. And his mission. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light so that through him all might believe.
Just a witness.
Just a witness. The sermon reminded us of his miraculous birth story from Luke to elderly parents, Zechariah and Elizabeth.
And the prophecies about his role, preparing the way.
Right. Gabriel's prophecy, Zechariah's own words, it was all part of God's plan.
So the key things about John were divinely sent, and specifically a witness.
Crucially, a witness to the light, not the light himself. Verse 8 is explicit. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light.
That humility really stands out, doesn't it? His whole job was pointing away from himself.
It's incredibly challenging. His focus was entirely on Jesus. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Huh?
Who are we pointing to with our lives?
Are we drawing attention to Christ, or maybe subtly to ourselves? It's a good check.
John's a great example there.
So the light arrives, the witness points to him. How did the world react? That's verses 9 to 13. And, well, it wasn't exactly a standing ovation, was it?
No, far from it. It's quite sobering, actually. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world.
Okay, so the light is for everyone.
Yes, its reach is universal. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him.
Wait, the world he made didn't know him.
That's the tragic irony. And worse, he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him.
His own people rejected him.
Yeah. So, two big things there. First, that scope of the light, it's for everyone. God's love is unconditional, sending his son for the whole world.
But there's a condition for salvation.
Well, salvation itself requires a response. You have to believe. The sermon used that analogy, remember? Like free stuff being given out at a station.
Yeah. It's free, but you still have to actually take it.
Exactly. It won't just land on you. You need to receive it. John 3:16 is the classic verse here, of course. God loved the world, but belief is necessary.
Okay. And the second point was that tragic ignorance, the creation not recognizing the creator.
It echoes what Paul writes in Romans about people suppressing the truth, ignoring the evidence of God in creation.
And even his own people, those who had the history, the promises, they rejected him too. It shows how strong resistance to God's truth can be.
It really does. But then there's that amazing shift in verse 12.
Yet to all who did receive him, yes.
To those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God.
Wow. That's a transformation.
A radical one. And notice how it happens. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God.
So it's not about bloodline or human effort.
Not at all. It's a divine act, a spiritual rebirth, a new identity given by God himself.
The application there seems pretty direct. The world's rejection is a warning.
Definitely. It pushes you to ask, have I really recognized him? Have I truly received him and accepted that offer?
Have I become a child of God through faith in him?
Yeah. Powerful questions.
And that leads beautifully into the next massive section, verses 14 to 18.
Yeah.
The incarnation, God among us.
This is, well, it's the heart of it all, isn't it? The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us.
Just stop right there. The Word became flesh.
God became human. Fully God, yet fully human. It's mind-blowing. He stepped into our reality.
Experienced everything we do. Joy, pain, tiredness.
Everything. Bridging that gap between divine and human. And then made his dwelling among us. The sermon mentioned this word tabernacled.
Yes, like pitching his tent among us. It echoes the Old Testament tabernacle, God's presence with Israel.
But now it's personal, permanent, in Jesus. God living with us, up close, not distant.
An intimate connection.
Absolutely. And the disciples saw something amazing. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father.
So even in his humanity, his divine glory shone through.
Glimpses of it, yes. The unique splendor of the Son. And he came full of grace and truth.
Grace and truth, not one or the other.
Both, perfectly balanced, unmerited favor and reality, opening the way for us to truly know God.
Which ties into verse 18. No one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son has made him known.
Jesus is the ultimate revelation. If you want to know what God is like, look at Jesus.
The implications are just staggering. God stepping into our broken world as one of us.
To offer us a way back, it should fill us with awe, shouldn't it? And gratitude, and just a desire to know him more.
Definitely. Okay, so finally, the message brought us back to John the Baptist again in verses 19 to 28. His testimony to the religious leaders.
Right. The focus shifts back to John dealing with questions from the Jewish authorities in Jerusalem. They wanted to know who he was, what gave him the right to baptize.
They knew about baptism, right? But John's was different.
Yes, Jewish practice included ritual washings, baptisms for converts, but John's was specifically a baptism of repentance, preparing for the Messiah's arrival.
And the leaders are grilling him. Are you the Messiah? Are you Elijah? Are you the prophet?
And John's answers are just direct. No, no, and no.
He knew exactly who he wasn't.
And who he was. He quotes Isaiah, "I am the voice of one calling in the wilderness, make straight the way for the Lord."
His whole identity was about preparing for Jesus, the forerunner.
Exactly. And when they push him on why he's baptizing if he's not one of those figures,
He points straight to Jesus again.
every time. "I baptize with water," he says, "but among you stands one you do not know."
Ooh, that must have stung. One you do not know.
And then he adds, "He is the one who comes after me, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie."
Wow. Total humility. He's saying I'm nothing compared to him.
Absolutely nothing. He understood Jesus' supreme greatness. His water baptism was just the preparation
For the real deal.
for the transformative work Jesus would do, baptizing with the Holy Spirit and fire, as Matthew's gospel puts it.
The lesson from John, again, is just keep pointing to Jesus.
Consistently. Keep Christ central. In our faith, our service, our lives. Does what I'm doing, does how I'm living, point people and myself towards him.
That's the constant check-in we need.
It really is.
So, wrapping this up, these opening verses of John are just foundational, aren't they?
Absolutely. They establish that core truth. Jesus, the eternal Word, God himself, is the light of the world. He wasn't an afterthought. He was there from before the beginning.
And God sent John the Baptist as this faithful witness, this humble signpost, pointing everyone to that coming light, which really leaves us, the listeners, you, with a couple of vital things to consider.
Yeah. First, do you truly grasp who Jesus is? His divine identity, God incarnate.
And second, flowing from that, have you personally received that light? Have you put your faith in his name?
Have you experienced that new birth he offers, becoming a child of God?
Because if you have, then the natural result should be a life that, like John's, testifies to Jesus, a life that points others to the light that darkness cannot overcome.
Well said. It's a passage that demands a response.
It really does. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into John 1.1-8. We really hope it's given you fresh insight and maybe some things to ponder about these incredible truths.
Definitely. So much depth in just these first few verses.
Thank you for listening to the Vine Christian Community Church podcast. We hope you can join us again next time for our next deep dive into the previous Sunday's message.
And for more information or resources, you can always check out the church website.
That's right. It's www.vinechurch.uk. Thanks again for listening.